The patrol ship moved slowly through the empty space. Commander Alaris watched the screens with tired eyes. She had been searching this area for 3 weeks now. Nothing ever happened out here in the outer terminus. It was the edge of known space where no one wanted to go. Her crew was bored. They wanted to go home. Alaris understood how they felt. She missed her family too. But orders were orders. Strange signals had been detected in this region. The Concordat Council wanted answers. The Concordat had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. 47 different species lived together in peace. There had been no major wars in anyone's memory. Life was safe, predictable, and calm. That was about to change. A young officer called out from her station. She had found something. Alaris moved closer to look at the screen. There were ships ahead. Old ships, very old. They looked like the ancient vessels from history books. Human ships. Alaris felt a chill run down her back. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. They had destroyed themselves 2,000 years ago in terrible wars. Earth was a dead world now, locked away and forgotten. Humans were just stories parents told children. Scary stories about monsters who refused to surrender, who fought without reason, who adapted to any challenge. But these ships looked too new, too clean. Something was wrong. Alaris ordered her crew to approach carefully. They would investigate and then report back. Simple mission, easy, nothing to worry about. She was wrong. The moment they got close, the human ships powered up. Lights blazed across their hulls. Weapon systems locked onto the patrol ships. Alaris barely had time to shout a warning before the attack began. The human weapons were like nothing she had ever seen. They tore through shields as if they were paper. Her ships exploded one by one. Crew members she had known for years died in seconds. The screams on the communication channels went silent as ships were destroyed. Alaris ordered a retreat. Her ship turned and ran. Behind her, the rest of her patrol was gone. 30 ships and their crews, all dead in less than 5 minutes. As she fled, she saw more human ships emerging from the darkness. Dozens of them, hundreds, they had been hiding, waiting. This was not some random encounter. This was planned. Humans were not extinct. They were very much alive, and they were angry. On board the human flagship, Admiral Do-Yun Park watched the fleeing Concordat ship disappear. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too much pain. His face showed no emotion as he gave orders to his crew. Let one escape, he had ordered. Let them carry the message. Let them know we are coming. The bridge of his ship was quiet. His officers waited for his next command. They had trained for this moment for their entire lives. Some had been born on ships in the dark space beyond the Concordat maps. They had never seen Earth. But they knew the stories. They knew what the Concordat had done to their ancestors. Colonel Ji-Wan Lee stood beside the Admiral. She was younger, with hard eyes and quick movements. Her combat armor was black and covered in weapons. She commanded the Ghost Corps, the most dangerous soldiers humanity had. The first strike went well, she said. Her voice was calm and professional. Park nodded slowly. This was just the beginning. The Concordat would know soon enough. They would panic. They would mobilize their fleets, and then the real war would start. Dr. Sumin Kang entered the bridge. She was a scientist and diplomat, not a soldier. She wore simple clothes and carried data tablets. Her face showed worry. We should try to talk to them, she said. The Concordat might listen if we explain what happened. If we tell them the truth about the first contact wars. Park turned to look at her. His expression was tired. We tried talking 2,000 years ago, Doctor. They responded by trying to kill us all. They hunted us across the galaxy. They burned our colonies. They made Earth uninhabitable. And then they told everyone we were extinct so they could forget what they did. Kang looked down. She knew he was right, but she also knew that more war would only bring more death. There had to be another way. The government has made their decision, Park continued. We take back what was stolen from us. We show the galaxy that humanity cannot be erased. We make them remember. Across the fleet, Captain Minho Choi prepared his fighter squadron. He was young and confident, with quick reflexes and a cocky smile. He had never seen Earth. He had been born on a generation ship during the long exile. But he knew the stories. He knew about the Concordat genocide. His squadron was called Raptor. They flew the fastest, deadliest fighters humanity had built. Choi loved flying. He loved the freedom of space. But most of all, he wanted to prove himself. He wanted to show that his generation was just as strong as the ones who had survived the first contact wars. Far away on the concordate capital world of Prime Nexus, High Arbiter Velthara received the emergency report. She was ancient and wise, a being made of living crystal that reflected light in beautiful colors. She had ruled the Concordate Council for 800 years. She did not believe the report. Humans were extinct. This had to be some mistake. Perhaps pirates using old human ship designs. Perhaps a computer error. She ordered more patrols to investigate, but she was not worried. General Cromath thought differently. He was a massive warrior from the reptilian Thurian species. He had 4 arms and scales like armor. He commanded all Concordate military forces. He read the report and saw an opportunity. The Concordate had been at peace for too long. The military was weak. Soldiers had forgotten how to fight. If this threat was real, Cromath could use it to restore military power. He could become more important than the Council itself. He began moving fleets without full authorization. He prepared for war. Only Scholar Ixithal understood the danger. He was a historian who studied ancient ruins. He had spent decades examining what remained of human civilization. He knew the old records. He knew the truth that everyone wanted to forget. Humans had not started the first contact wars. The Concordate had. The founding species had been afraid of competition. Humans were too adaptable, too creative, too dangerous to allow into the galactic community. So the Concordat had struck first without warning, without mercy. Ixithal tried to warn the Council. He brought evidence. He showed them records they had hidden away. But no one wanted to listen. It was easier to believe the myths. It was easier to think humans had destroyed themselves. 3 days after the first attack, Captain Choi led his squadron on a raid. The target was a massive shipyard where the Concordate built their war vessels. It was deep in their territory, supposedly safe. The human fighters appeared without warning. They moved too fast for the defenses to track. Choi's missiles struck with perfect accuracy. The shipyard exploded in a fireball that could be seen from orbit. But as Choi flew away from the destruction, he saw something that made his heart sink. Escape pods, civilian workers fleeing the burning station. Some of the pods were damaged. People were dying, not soldiers, just workers. He had killed civilians, just like the Concordate had killed human civilians 2,000 years ago. As he returned to his carrier, Choi felt sick. Were humans any different from the Concordate? Or were they becoming the same monsters they hated? The galaxy was about to learn that humanity existed, that they had survived, that they remembered everything. The myths were becoming real, and reality was far more dangerous than any story. General Cromath stood on the bridge of his flagship. Around him spread the largest battle fleet the Concordate had assembled in centuries. 500 warships ready for combat. The general felt confident, proud. This would be an easy victory. He was going to crush these humans and remind the galaxy why the Thurians were the greatest warriors. Peace had made the Concordate soft. This war would make them strong again. The fleet jumped into the outer terminus. Cromath expected to find scattered human ships, maybe a few hidden bases. He would destroy them all and return home a hero. Instead, he found nothing. Empty space, no ships, no signals, nothing. Then the attacks began. Human ships appeared from nowhere. They came out of asteroid fields, nebula, clouds, and radiation zones where Concordate sensors could not detect them. They fired and vanished before the fleet could respond. Hit and run, strike and fade. Cromath's ships began dying one by one, not in glorious battle but picked off like prey. The humans refused to fight fair. They attacked from hiding. They used the environment as a weapon. They targeted command ships and supply vessels. The general roared orders. He sent ships to chase the humans. But every time his forces pursued, they found themselves trapped in fields of mines or ambushed by more hidden vessels. The humans knew this region of space perfectly. They had been preparing for years. Admiral Do-Hyun Park watched the battle from his command center. He did not smile. This was not a game, but his strategy was working. The Concordate expected traditional warfare, fleet against fleet. They did not understand guerrilla tactics. Humans had learned the hard way. When you are outnumbered, you do not fight directly. You make your enemy waste resources chasing shadows. You hit them where they are weak. You make them afraid. Colonel Jiwan Lee prepared for her own mission. While the fleet kept Chromath busy, she would strike at the heart of the Concordat. Her Ghost Corps had a target, a council member's homeworld. They would infiltrate, steal military secrets, and escape. Lee and her team wore captured Concordat uniforms. They had forged identification. They moved through the alien city like they belonged there. No one looked twice at them. Security was relaxed this far from the front lines. The data center was underground. Lee's team hacked the security systems and downloaded everything. Military plans, fleet positions, supply routes, information that would help humanity win the war. But on their way out, they encountered civilians, a group of alien children with their teacher visiting a museum. The children stopped and stared at the armed soldiers. One child started to cry. Lee's soldiers raised their weapons. They could not leave witnesses. But Lee held up her hand. Stop. These were not soldiers. They were just children. Innocent. She told the teacher to take the children and leave. Do not look back. Do not call for help until we are gone. The teacher grabbed the children and ran. One of Lee's soldiers questioned the decision. Colonel, they will report us. We might not escape. Lee looked at him with hard eyes. We are not murderers. We kill soldiers, not children. If we become like the Concordat, then what are we fighting for? They extracted successfully. The mission was complete. But Lee could not forget the fear in those children's eyes. The Concordat would use this incident as propaganda. Look, they would say, humans showed mercy. Maybe they are not monsters after all. On Prime Nexus, High Arbiter Velthara finally understood the truth. She met with Scholar Ixithal in a private chamber. The historian showed her documents, videos, records, evidence that the Concordat had attacked humans first, that the first contact wars had been genocide, not self-defense. Velthara felt her world crumble. Her entire civilization was built on lies. The peace she had protected for centuries was bought with the blood of an innocent species. She had been so certain the Concordat was good, that they brought order and justice to the galaxy, but they were no different from the ancient empires they had replaced. They conquered and called it civilization. They committed genocide and called it necessary. Dr. Sumin Kang received a secret message. It came through encrypted channels from someone inside the Concordat government. The message asked for a meeting, neutral ground. The sender claimed to want peace. Admiral Park did not trust it. This could be a trap. But Kang insisted. If there was even a small chance for peace, they had to try. Park finally agreed, but sent a full security team with her. The meeting took place on an abandoned space station. Kang arrived to find High Arbiter Velthara waiting alone. The leader of the Concordat had come herself. Velthara spoke first. I know the truth now. What my people did to yours. I am sorry. Those words mean nothing, I know. But I want to stop this war before more innocent people die. Kang listened carefully. Can you control your military? Can you make them stop fighting? Velthara's light dimmed. That is the problem. General Chromath has taken effective command. The military no longer answers to the council. He wants this war. He thinks victory will make him the true ruler of the Concordat. Then we cannot have peace, Kang said sadly. Not while he leads your forces. The two leaders talked for hours. They shared information. They tried to find solutions. But the war was bigger than both of them now. Too many people wanted revenge. Too many had died already. When news of the secret meeting reached Chromath, he was furious. He declared Velthara a traitor. He launched a massive attack on a human colony world called New Busan. His goal was to prove human weakness, to show that peace talks were pointless. New Busan was a farming colony, mostly civilians, minimal defenses. Captain Minho Choi's squadron was the only military force nearby. 50 fighters against 500 Concordat warships. Choi knew they could not win, but they could buy time. Time for civilians to evacuate. Time for the main fleet to arrive. Every minute mattered. His squadron fought like demons. They used every trick, every tactic they knew. They made suicide runs on capital ships. They drew enemy fighters away from the colony. They died one by one, but they did not retreat. Choi's fighter was hit multiple times. His systems were failing. He could eject, but then the enemy flagship would continue bombing the colony below. People were still evacuating. He needed more time. He made a choice. He aimed his damaged fighter at the enemy flagship's bridge. Maximum speed. No weapons, just his ship as a missile. At the last second, he ejected. His fighter crashed into the flagship, destroying its command center. The enemy fleet fell into chaos. Choi floated in space, watching evacuation ships flee the planet below. He had bought them enough time. Admiral Park's fleet arrived to find New Busan under heavy bombardment. The colony's shields were failing. Thousands had evacuated, but thousands more remained trapped. Park engaged Chromath's fleet in a massive battle. Human weapons and tactics proved superior, but the enemy had numbers. The fight raged for hours. Ships burned. People died. The void filled with wreckage and bodies. In the end, Park was forced to retreat. New Busan fell. The colony burned. Men, women, and children died in the flames. Another human world lost. Another massacre to add to the list. Back on the flagship, Dr. Kang stood in silence. She had argued for peace. She had believed diplomacy could work. Now thousands were dead. Had her efforts distracted humanity from preparing? Was this her fault? Admiral Park found her in the observation deck staring at the stars. He said nothing. There was nothing to say. They both knew the war had entered a new phase. There would be no mercy now. No restraint. Colonel Lee approached them with a proposal. We cannot win through fleet battles, but we can cut off the head of the snake. Chromath is the problem. If we eliminate him, the Concordat military will fall apart. Velthara can take control and end the war. Park nodded slowly. Prepare the mission. We assassinate Chromath, and we make him pay for New Busan. The war was no longer about survival. It was about vengeance. And humanity was very good at vengeance. The abandoned space station drifted in neutral territory, far from both human and Concordat space. It had been a trading post once before the war. Now it was empty and dark, perfect for a secret meeting. Dr. Suman Kang arrived first, her small shuttle docking quietly. She wore a pressure suit and carried no weapons. If this was a trap, weapons would not save her anyway. She floated through the empty corridors, her helmet light cutting through the darkness. In the station's old conference room, she waited. Minutes passed like hours. Then she heard the sound of another ship docking. Footsteps approaching. Kang's heart raced. Was she about to meet a peacemaker or walk into an ambush? High Arbiter Velthara entered the room. Even in the dim light, her crystalline body glowed softly. She was alone, also unarmed. For a moment, the two women simply stared at each other. Human and alien, enemy species, but both hoping for the same thing. Dr. Kang, Velthara said, her voice translating through the communication device. Thank you for coming, High Arbiter. I must admit I am surprised. When I received your message, I thought it might be false. I understand your caution. Our species have much reason to distrust each other. Velthara moved closer, her colors shifting to show sincerity. But we must try. This war will destroy both our civilizations if we do not stop it. Kang relaxed slightly. The High Arbiter seemed genuine. What can you tell me about the Concordat's position? Is there support for peace? The Council is divided. Some want to negotiate. Others believe only military victory is acceptable. General Chromath leads the war faction. He grows more powerful every day. He claims I am weak for considering peace. Chromath is the one who attacked our colonies, Kang said, unable to hide her anger. He murdered thousands of civilians, I know. And I am sorry, truly. Velthara's colors dimmed with sadness. Dr. Kang, I recently learned the truth about the First Contact Wars. The official history is false. The Concordat attacked humanity without provocation. We committed genocide. Kang had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed still shocked her. Why are you telling me this? Because peace cannot be built on lies. If we are to end this war, both sides must acknowledge what truly happened. The Concordat owes humanity a debt we can never fully repay. They talked for hours, exploring possibilities. Felthera offered territorial concessions, trade agreements, and a formal apology. Kang listened but knew her own government would demand more. Humanity wanted Earth returned, wanted the Concordat to admit their crimes publicly, wanted guarantees that genocide would never happen again. These demands are reasonable, Felthera agreed, but I fear I cannot deliver them. Chromath would see it as surrender. He would use it to overthrow me and seize power. Then the war would continue under even more brutal leadership. What do you suggest? Kang asked. We need something that changes the political situation, something that proves peace is possible and warfare is futile, a grand gesture that neither side can ignore. Before they could discuss further, both their communication devices sounded urgent alerts. Kang checked hers and felt her blood go cold. Chromath has launched an attack on New Busan, a human farming colony. Minimal defenses, mostly civilians. Velthera checked her own messages. He did not have authorization. He's acting independently now, trying to force my hand. If I do not support him, he will claim I am betraying the Concordat. I must return to my people, Kang said urgently. If New Busan falls, any chance of peace dies with it. I understand. Dr. Kang, please know that I will continue working for peace. But we are running out of time. They parted ways, each returning to their own side. The secret meeting had accomplished little except to prove that some on both sides still hoped for peace. But hope was fragile and war was strong. At New Busan, the situation was desperate. Captain Minho Choi's fighter squadron was the only military force in range. 50 fighters against 300 Concordat warships. The odds were impossible, but Choi refused to abandon the colony. Raptor Squadron, this is Raptor Leader, Choi transmitted to his pilots. We cannot win this fight, but we can buy time. Every minute we delay them is another minute for civilians to evacuate. Stay sharp, stay alive, and make every shot count. The battle began. Choi's fighters dove into the Concordat fleet like insects attacking giants. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking from unexpected angles. Choi personally destroyed 2 cruisers by targeting their reactor cores with precise shots. But for every Concordat ship damaged, 3 more moved forward. Choi watched his squadron shrink. Raptor 3 destroyed. Raptor 7 crippled and forced to eject. Raptor 11 vanished in a ball of fire. On the colony surface, families fled to evacuation transports. Parents carried children. Elderly helped each other move. Everyone knew they might not make it. The Concordat bombardment had already begun, destroying infrastructure and farms. Choi saw the destruction through his fighters' sensors. Anger filled him. These people had done nothing wrong. They were farmers, not soldiers. They grew food and raised families. Now they were dying because of a war that started before they were born. Raptor Leader, enemy flagship is advancing toward the colony, warned his wingman. If it reaches bombardment range, nothing will survive. Choi looked at his fuel gauge. Almost empty. His weapons were nearly depleted, but the flagship had to be stopped. He made a decision. All fighters continue evacuation support. I am going after the flagship. Raptor Leader, that is suicide. You cannot. I can buy you time. Get those people out. Choi cut the channel and accelerated toward the massive warship. Its point defense systems opened fire. Energy beams cut through space around him. One grazed his wing, causing damage warnings to flash. Choi ignored everything except his target. The flagship's bridge. If he could hit it, maybe he could disable command and control. Maybe the fleet would pause long enough for the evacuation to complete. He lined up his approach. Armed his last missiles, his fighter shook as more hits connected. The canopy cracked. Alarms screamed. Choi thought about his life. 29 years old and about to die. But if his death saved those civilians, it would mean something. At the last second, Choi fired his missiles and hit the ejection button. His seat launched clear as his fighter smashed into the flagship's bridge. The explosion tore through the command deck. The massive ship went dark, its systems failing. Choi tumbled through space in his ejection seat, watching the chaos he had created. The Concordat fleet faltered without the flagship's coordination. Minutes later, the human main fleet arrived. Admiral Park's forces hit the confused enemy with overwhelming power, but victory came too late for New Busan. Half the colony was destroyed, 5,000 civilians dead. The survivors crowded onto transport ships, watching their homes burn from orbit. Everything they had built was gone. Admiral Park ordered a rescue team to retrieve Choi. They found him alive but badly injured. Broken ribs, severe burns, nerve damage in his hands and arms. The doctors saved his life, but his flying career was over. In his hospital bed, Choi stared at the ceiling and tried to process what happened. He had wanted to be a hero, had dreamed of glorious combat. Instead, he had seen the ugly reality of war. Civilians dying, friends killed, victory that felt like defeat. Dr. Kang visited him. She sat beside his bed and took his uninjured hand. "What you did was incredibly brave." "I failed," Choi said bitterly. "I could not save them all. You saved thousands. Without your sacrifice, everyone would have died. Captain Choi, you gave those people a chance. That matters." Choi closed his eyes. "Doctor, is this war ever going to end? Or will we just keep killing each other until nothing is left?" Kang had no good answer. She thought about her meeting with Velthara, about the possibility of peace that seemed so fragile. "I hope it ends, Captain. I am working to make sure it does." News of the New Busan massacre spread through both human and concordate space. Among humans, it hardened resolve. Even those who had doubted the war now demanded vengeance. Admiral Park received orders from the civilian government to escalate operations. Colonel Ji-won Lee presented a bold plan. "Sir, we can end this war quickly. Send the Ghost Corps to assassinate General Cromath and the war faction leadership. Without them, the moderates can take control and negotiate peace." Park considered the proposal. It was risky, but it might work. And after New Busan, he wanted Cromath dead as much as anyone. "Prepare your teams, Colonel. You have authorization to proceed." Lee assembled her best soldiers. They studied Cromath's movements, looking for vulnerabilities. The general would be attending a fleet review ceremony in 3 weeks. Perfect opportunity for an assault. On Prime Nexus, High Arbiter Velthara faced a crisis. General Cromath's attack on New Busan without authorization was technically treason, but he was so popular with the military that arresting him would trigger a coup. She was trapped. Scholar Ixithal came to her with an idea. "High Arbiter, release the classified documents. Show the Concordate citizens the truth about the First Contact Wars. If they know the Concordate started the conflict, they may support peace. That would destroy my government, perhaps destroy the Concordate itself. Better to destroy a government built on lies than let millions die for those lies," Ixithal replied. Velthara thought about Dr. Kang, about their conversation, about the hope for peace. Finally, she made her decision. "Very well." Colonel Ji-won Lee moved through the darkness of General Cromath's flagship like a shadow. Her Ghost Corps team had infiltrated during the fleet review ceremony, disguised as maintenance workers. Now they were minutes away from their target. Lee checked her weapon and signaled her team to advance. The corridor ahead led to Cromath's command quarters. Kill the general, end the war. It seemed simple. But as they approached, Lee noticed something unexpected. Guards were escorting someone to the brig. A Concordate officer in chains. Lee recognized her from intelligence files. Commander Alaris, the officer who survived the first human attack. What was she doing here as a prisoner? Lee made a quick decision. She signaled her team to follow the guards. They needed to understand what was happening before they struck. Using stealth systems, they trailed the group to the detention area. Through security cameras, Lee watched as Cromath interrogated Alaris. The general accused her of treason for suggesting peace negotiations. Alaris defended herself calmly, saying the war was unwinnable and causing unnecessary suffering. Cromath struck her across the face. Cromath snarled at her. He said she was weak like Velthara, and all the cowards who wanted to surrender to humans. He said when he took control of the Concordat, traitors like her would be executed. Lee listened and felt her mission becoming complicated. Cromath was planning a coup against his own government. If he succeeded, the war would escalate beyond control. But if Lee killed him now, he would become a martyr and his followers might still seize power. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Park and explained the situation. Park considered for a moment, then told her to extract the prisoners. If Cromath was fighting his own people, they could use that. The prisoners might be valuable allies. Lee did not question the order. She gathered her team and explained the new plan. They would rescue Alaris and the other prisoners, then escape before anyone knew they were there. Assassination could wait. The extraction was quick and professional. Lee's team disabled the guards silently, freed the prisoners, and guided them toward the escape route. Alaris stared at Lee through her environmental suit's visor. Alaris asked why humans were saving them. Lee replied that they were more useful alive than dead, and because Chromath was the real enemy for everyone. They reached the extraction point, a cargo bay where Lee's shuttle waited. Alarms began to sound. Someone had discovered the escape. Lee cursed and ordered everyone to move faster. Concordate soldiers appeared, blocking their path. Lee and her team opened fire. Energy weapons lit up the corridor. Alaris grabbed a fallen rifle and joined the fight, shooting at her own former comrades who served Chromath. She had made her choice. They fought their way to the shuttle and launched just as reinforcements arrived. The small ship took heavy fire as it raced away from the flagship. Lee piloted with skill, weaving through the Concordate fleet until they reached safe distance. Hours later, Alaris sat in an interrogation room on the human flagship. She expected harsh treatment, perhaps torture. Instead, Dr. Suman Kang entered with 2 cups of tea. Dr. Kang introduced herself and said she hoped they could talk. Alaris took the tea cautiously and asked what they wanted from her. Kang said she wanted to understand. Alaris had seen both sides of the war. She had survived the first human attack, witnessed Chromath's brutality, and now she was here. What did she think about all this? Alaris was surprised by the question. She expected threats, not conversation. Slowly, she began to talk. She described her fear when humans appeared, her horror at the New Busan massacre, her disgust when she learned the truth about the first contact wars. Alaris said both sides had committed crimes. But continuing the war would not fix anything. It would only create more victims. Kang agreed. She asked what Alaris would think if she learned that High Arbiter Velthara wanted peace. That Velthara had leaked the historical documents specifically to change public opinion. Alaris said that would make Velthara braver than she thought. And in great danger from Chromath, Kang said exactly. They needed to stop Chromath before he destroyed any chance of peace. Alaris could help them do that. Alaris considered carefully. Helping humans would make her a traitor to many Concordate citizens. But if it prevented more death, was it not the right choice? She asked what they needed her to do. On Prime Nexus, General Chromath was furious about the escape. His prisoners had been taken by humans. His security had been breached. Worst of all, Velthara was using the incident to demand his arrest for illegal detention and planning a coup. Chromath decided to act first. He rallied loyal military units and marched on the council chambers. If Velthara wanted to arrest him, he would remove her from power. The coup had begun. News of the coup spread quickly. Some Concordate forces supported Chromath, believing strength was needed to win the war. Others remained loyal to Velthara and the civilian government. The Concordate was tearing itself apart. Admiral Park saw opportunity. A divided enemy was a weak enemy. But Dr. Kang argued for a different approach. They should offer to help Velthara, show the Concordate that humans can be allies, not just enemies. Park was skeptical about helping the people who tried to exterminate humanity. But Kang reminded him that Velthara leaked the documents and admitted the Concordate's guilt. She was risking everything for peace. Should they not support that? Park looked around his command center. Colonel Lee nodded slowly. Commander Alaris, now present as an advisor, spoke up. She said High Arbiter Velthara was sincere. If Chromath won, this war would never end. He would fight until the Concordate or humanity was destroyed. Park decided to help. He told Dr. Kang to contact Velthara and offer their assistance. But make it clear they expected peace negotiations in return. Velthara received the human offer with relief and disbelief. Her own military was split. Her government was crumbling. And humans whom she had wronged so deeply were offering to help. It was the grand gesture she had hoped for. Together, human and loyalist Concordate forces moved against Chromath. It was strange seeing their ships flying in formation together. Former enemies now working toward a common goal. The battle for Prime Nexus was brief but intense. Chromath's forces fought hard, but they were outnumbered. When human ships appeared alongside Concordate vessels, many of Chromath's followers lost heart. They had been told humans were monsters. Seeing them fight to protect the Concordate capital confused and demoralized them. Chromath himself refused to surrender. He retreated to a military station and threatened to detonate its reactor, destroying everything nearby. Admiral Park and Colonel Lee led the assault to capture him alive. They found Chromath on the command deck surrounded by loyal guards. The general looked at Park with hatred. He said humans still were the enemy. The Concordat would never accept them. Park replied calmly that they were not looking for acceptance. They were looking for peace, something Chromath never understood. Chromath lunged for the reactor controls. Colonel Lee shot him before he could reach them. The general fell, wounded but alive. His coup had failed. In the aftermath, High Arbiter Velthara stood before the Council and the galaxy. Beside her stood Admiral Park representing humanity. Together, they announced immediate peace negotiations and a joint investigation of war crimes from both sides. The announcement shocked billions. Humans and the Concordat working together seemed impossible days ago. Now it was reality. Public opinion shifted rapidly. If these two leaders could set aside hatred, perhaps peace was possible. But not everyone was happy. Extremists on both sides felt betrayed. A human faction set off bombs at a Concordat embassy, killing dozens. In retaliation, Concordat terrorists destroyed a human refugee ship. The violence threatened to destroy the fragile peace before it could begin. Park and Velthara issued a joint statement condemning the attacks. They promised to hunt down the terrorists together, proving that the alliance was real. Colonel Lee took charge of the investigation. Working with Concordat security, she tracked the human bombers to a hidden base. When she arrested them, they shouted that she was a traitor. Lee looked at them with disgust. Lee told them she was not a traitor. She was a soldier who was tired of senseless death. The war was over. They could accept it or face justice. Concordat authorities captured their own terrorists as well. Both groups were put on trial publicly. The trial showed that both humans and the Concordat were serious about accountability. Captain Minho Choi, recovering from his injuries, watched the trials from his hospital bed. Dr. Kang visited him regularly, giving updates. Choi struggled with his new reality. He could no longer fly. His body was broken, but watching humans and aliens work together gave him hope. Choi asked what happens now. Kang said now they build peace. It would not be easy. Many people on both sides still wanted war, but they had a chance, a real chance to end this. Choi said he wanted to help. He could not fly anymore, but he could do something else. Anything to make sure his squadron died for something meaningful. Kang smiled. She said she had the perfect job for him. Would he like to work in the diplomatic corps? They needed people who understood both sides of this war. Choi thought about it and nodded. A new mission, a new purpose. Perhaps this was what he was meant to do all along. As preparations for formal peace talks began, both sides knew the hardest work was just beginning. Ending the shooting was one thing. Building trust was another. The peace conference was held on neutral ground, a massive space station built specifically for the negotiations. Delegates from every human colony and every Concordat species gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall. Admiral Do-hyun Park stood at the entrance, watching the crowd. He wore his full dress uniform, medals from countless battles displayed on his chest. But today he was not here as a warrior. He was here as a representative of humanity's hope for peace. High Arbiter Velthara approached him. Her crystalline body glowed with warm colors. She extended a hand in the human gesture of greeting. Park hesitated only a moment before taking it. Velthara spoke first. She said she never thought she would see this day. Park replied that neither did he. But here they were, trying to build something better than war. The negotiations lasted for weeks. Every issue was debated thoroughly. The return of Earth to humanity, reparations for the genocide, the structure of a new galactic order that would prevent future wars. Some discussions were heated. Concordat species argued they should not pay for crimes committed by their ancestors. Human delegates pointed out that they still suffered the consequences of those crimes. Without justice, there could be no real peace. Dr. Sumin Kang worked tirelessly as the lead human negotiator. She met with dozens of species representatives, finding common ground. She proposed a compromise. Instead of monetary reparations, the Concordat would help rebuild Earth and provide technology to restore the damaged ecosystem. This solution created mutual dependence. Concordat engineers would work alongside humans. They would share knowledge and resources. Economic ties would make future conflict costly for everyone. The question of Earth itself was emotional for humans. For 2,000 years, their homeworld had been occupied and quarantined. Now they wanted it back. The Concordat agreed to withdraw all military installations and research facilities. Scholar Ixithal led the effort to preserve human historical sites. His teams had already cataloged ancient ruins across Earth, museums, monuments, and cultural treasures that survived the bombardment. All would be protected and restored. Admiral Park was part of the first official expedition to Earth. He landed in Korea in the ruins of Seoul, the city where his ancestors had lived. Buildings were crumbling, overtaken by vegetation, but the bones of the city remained. Park walked through empty streets, his boots echoing in the silence. He found the old memorial for the first contact wars, names carved in stone. Millions are dead. His own family name appeared 3 times. He knelt before the monument and felt tears on his face. For 50 years he had fought and planned and dreamed of this moment. Now that it was here, he felt not triumph but sadness. So much lost, so many lives destroyed. And for what? A misunderstanding that escalated into genocide. Colonel Ji-won Lee found him there. She stood silently beside him for a long time. Finally, she spoke. She said they had won. Not just the war, but something more important. They had broken the cycle of hatred. Park looked at her. He asked if she truly believed that. Lee nodded. She said she had spent her life training to kill aliens. But working with Commander Alaris and the Concordate forces during the coup taught her something. The enemy was not a species. The enemy was the choice to hate. Back at the peace conference, the final treaty was taking shape. Humanity would join the Concordate as an equal member, not a conquered species, not a subordinate, an equal partner with full sovereignty and voting rights. The Concordate Constitution was amended to include new protections. No species could be attacked preemptively. Self-determination was guaranteed. And a joint military command would ensure no single species could wage aggressive war. War crimes trials proceeded on both sides. General Cromath was tried and convicted of ordering the New Busan massacre and attempting a coup. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. Human officers who committed atrocities faced justice as well. Colonel Lee personally testified against several human commanders who had executed prisoners. She knew it made her unpopular with some veterans, but she believed accountability applied to everyone. Justice could not be selective. Captain Min-ho Choi had recovered enough to leave the hospital. He now worked in Dr. Kang's diplomatic team. His job was cultural liaison, helping humans and concordate species understand each other. Choi organized youth exchange programs. Young humans and aliens learning each other's languages and customs. He watched them play together, study together, become friends. It gave him hope that the next generation would not repeat the mistakes of the past. One day, a young concordate girl approached Choi. She was Thurian, with scales and 4 arms like General Cromath. She asked if humans hated all Thurians because of what Cromath did. Choi knelt down to her level. He told her no. Humans did not hate Thurians. They hated what Cromath chose to do, but she was not responsible for his choices. She could make her own decisions. She could choose to build bridges instead of walls. The girl smiled and ran back to play with her human classmates. Choi watched her go and felt pride. This was why his squadron had fought. Not for territory or revenge. For moments like this, for a future where species could coexist. The treaty signing ceremony was held on Earth, specifically in the rebuilt Seoul Convention Center, on the grounds where Park had found the memorial. Thousands attended in person. Billions watched via broadcast across the galaxy. High Arbiter Velthara and Admiral Park stood at the podium together. Behind them were representatives from every species. Human and alien standing side by side, Velthara spoke first. She acknowledged the Concordate's crimes. She apologized formally for the genocide and promised it would never be forgotten. The Concordate would carry the shame of what they did, but they would also carry the responsibility to do better. Park followed. He spoke of humanity's suffering, but also their hope. He said humans had learned that strength alone did not make a civilization great. The true measure of greatness was the ability to choose peace even when war was possible. Together they signed the Treaty of New Unity, the document that would reshape the galaxy. As their signatures appeared on the treaty, the crowd erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy, but most recognized that this was better than endless war. Outside the convention center, protesters demonstrated. Some humans still wanted total conquest. Some concordate species rejected any peace with humanity, but their numbers were small. The silent majority wanted to move forward. Dr. Kang was appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the Concordate Council. She would work from Prime Nexus representing human interests. Commander Alaris became her counterpart, the Council's liaison to humanity. The two women had become genuine friends. They established the Reconciliation Commission to address ongoing tensions. Any dispute between humans and concordate species would be mediated before it could escalate to violence. Not all humans accepted the treaty. One colony refused to recognize it. They declared independence and vowed to continue fighting. Admiral Park had to lead a peacekeeping mission to convince them. Park met with the colony's leaders. They called him a traitor, said he had betrayed humanity by making peace with genocidal monsters. Park listened patiently. Then he showed them footage from Earth, cities being rebuilt, forests regrowing, children playing in parks. Park told them this was what they fought for. Not revenge, not conquest, but the right for humans to live and thrive. The treaty gave them that. The war was over. They could honor the dead by building a better future, not by creating more death. Slowly, the colony leaders relented. They agreed to rejoin the human government and accept the treaty. The last holdouts had surrendered. Peace was truly complete. 5 years passed. Earth was being actively resettled. Millions of humans returned home, building new cities on the ruins of the old. The planet was healing. The sky was clear. The oceans were clean. Life was returning. In Seoul, a new university was built, the Seoul Academy for Interspecies Studies. Admiral Park retired from military service to become a professor there. He taught strategy, ethics, and the history of the war. His students were both human and alien. They studied together, learning from the past to prevent future conflicts. Park watched them with satisfaction. This was his real victory. Not the battles he won, but the peace he helped create. Dr. Kang visited him one afternoon. They sat in his office drinking tea and reminiscing. Kang told him about the latest Reconciliation Commission case, a minor trade dispute that was resolved through dialogue. Park smiled. These small successes mattered. Each peaceful resolution proved the system worked. He asked Kang if she ever regretted pushing so hard for peace when others wanted war. Kang shook her head. She said every life saved justified her efforts. The war could have lasted decades longer. Millions more could have died. Instead, they found a way forward. That was worth any personal cost. They talked about the future, about the next generation who would grow up knowing peace, about the possibility of true friendship between species. It seemed possible now. Difficult, but possible. Colonel Lee had also left active military service. She now led the Joint Human Concordate Military Academy, training the next generation of officers to work together. She insisted on mixed units from the start, humans and aliens learning to trust each other. Her first graduating class was a mix of 20 species. They had learned tactics from both human and concordate traditions.